Night City was a realm of contradictions, a sprawling urban jungle where neon lights battled with shadows, and high-tech wonders coexisted with the crumbling remnants of a society on the brink. Jack Malone, a private detective with a penchant for trouble and an equally strong affinity for sarcasm, lounged in his cramped office, the flickering fluorescent light casting an erratic glow over a pile of takeout containers that might have been a meal once. He wasn't sure anymore. Jack's stakeout was a spectacular failure. He'd been watching a nondescript building for hours, his gaze fixated on the door, waiting for something, anything, to happen. His only company was a drone, a clunky contraption he'd jury-rigged to assist him, which now hovered lazily above his head. He'd programmed it to deliver snacks, his one weakness, and it was currently doing a splendid job of distracting him. As he adjusted his cheap sunglasses, Jack's thoughts drifted. "If I wanted to watch paint dry, I'd have stayed home," he muttered, just as the drone buzzed down, dropping a packet of chips right on his head. He swatted it away, chuckling to himself. "Thanks for the delivery, buddy. Next time, how about a little stealth?" At that moment, a figure emerged from the building across the street. Jack straightened up, ready to spring into action, but the drone had other ideas. With a life of its own, it flitted out of his reach, spiraling awkwardly towards the unsuspecting figure. Jack's heart raced as he watched the drone dive bomb the person, who turned out to be a group of very serious-looking criminals clad in black. "What the?" Jack whispered, gripping the edge of his desk. The drone collided with a well-dressed man in a suit, sending him staggering into his equally bewildered companions. The scene unfolded like a slapstick comedy, and Jack's eyes widened in horror as the group turned to him, suspicion etched across their faces. "Is that your toy?" one of them growled, glaring at Jack through the window. I mean, it's a pretty high-tech surveillance device." Jack shot back, scrambling to find his phone to call for backup. But the criminals were already advancing, and in a stroke of genius, or perhaps madness, Jack decided to lean into it. "Hey, fellas," he called out, putting on a bravado he didn't quite feel. "You look like the kind of guys who appreciate cutting-edge technology. How about you let me show you what this baby can do?" Much to his surprise, they paused, curiosity flickering in their eyes. Jack used the moment to retrieve the drone, which was now attempting to take a selfie with one of the criminals. As Jack stumbled back, his feet tangled in his own shoelaces, he somehow turned the chaos into an impromptu pitch about the drone's capabilities, weaving a tale of espionage and cutting-edge AI. Imagine, robotic arms, high-speed data transfer, snacks on demand. He gestured wildly, and to his astonishment, a few of them chuckled. "Maybe this guy's not so bad," one of them muttered, glancing at his comrades. In that surreal moment, the criminals mistook Jack for a genius infiltrator, offering him a seat at their table. Jack's mind raced. What was he doing? But, like any good detective who lived by his wits, he couldn't resist. He slipped into the role, engaging them in a game of verbal acrobatics, each quip leading him further away from being just a private EYE. It was only when one of the men leaned in, asking about the real job Jack was working on, that the facade began to crack. "Listen, fellas," Jack said, raising his hands. "I've got an appointment with Destiny, or at least an appointment for some overpriced coffee. Let's save the world later, okay?" As he backed away slowly, Jack felt a sense of triumph mixed with relief. He escaped the interaction, his heart pounding not just from the near miss but from the thrill of dodging danger with humor. Who knew chaos could be so entertaining? Back in his office, the adrenaline high slowly faded, replaced by the dull ache of reality. Just as he settled into his chair, trying to process what had just happened, the door creaked open. A striking woman stepped in, her entrance commanding attention. She wore an oversized trench coat that seemed at odds with the sleek environment outside, and her eyes held a mix of desperation and determination. "Mr. Malone?" she asked, her voice smooth yet tinged with urgency. "Depends on who's asking," Jack replied, leaning back and crossing his arms. "If you're here to sell me a timeshare, I'm going to have to decline. I'm not selling anything." She took a step forward, her expression serious. "My name is Elena. I need your help." Jack raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "What's the problem, Miss Elena? Lost your cat in the data cloud?" "My brother is missing," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "He was working for Elysium Dynamics. I think they're involved in something dangerous." Jack's interest peaked. "Dangerous is my middle name." "Well, technically, it's Alan, but it could be dangerous if I had a choice." He leaned forward, the gears in his mind already whirring. "Tell me everything." As Elena detailed her brother's disappearance, Jack's mind raced with possibilities. High-tech experiments, immortality, and a secretive corporation. This was the kind of case he craved, the kind that brought him back to life in this otherwise dull routine. "Let me get this straight," Jack said, his tone playful yet serious. "You want me to go up against a tech giant because your brother might have turned into a machine? Sounds like a typical Tuesday for me." Elena's lips twitched, almost a smile. "You're not scared?" "Scared?" Jack laughed. "In Night City? I'm more worried about my snack delivery drone." As they continued their conversation, Jack felt a spark of excitement. He might be a washed-up detective in a crumbling city, but with Elena at his side, he suddenly felt like he was stepping into a whole new adventure. And so, with a mixture of humor, desperation, and the faintest hint of romance, Jack Malone agreed to take the case. Little did he know, this would lead him down a path filled with laughter, danger, and the dark heart of Night City itself. Jack Malone couldn't shake the feeling that this case would be unlike any he'd tackled before. The energy in the air crackled as he and Elena made their plans. They agreed to meet later that evening at a tech convention that Elysium Dynamics was hosting, a perfect place to dig for information without raising too many eyebrows. As night descended over Night City, the neon lights illuminated the streets with a garish glow. Jack slipped into his slightly tattered blazer, doing his best to look the part of a tech-savvy detective. Elena arrived looking every bit the part of a woman on a mission, her trench coat flaring dramatically as she stepped from the hover cab. "Ready for this?" Jack asked, trying to mask his own nerves. "Born ready," she replied, her confidence infectious. The convention hall buzzed with the sounds of high-energy pitches and the whir of drones zipping through the air, showcasing the latest tech. Jack felt a mix of excitement and anxiety as they blended into the crowd. He adjusted his glasses and let the sheer absurdity of the event wash over him. Glowing booths showcasing everything from virtual reality headsets to mind-uploading devices. "Look at that one," Jack said, pointing to a booth labeled Elysium Dynamics, the future of humanity. A pair of overly enthusiastic salespeople demonstrated their latest product, a sleek headset that promised to upload your consciousness into a machine, allowing you to live forever in a digital paradise. If that doesn't scream red flag, I don't know what does. Elena chuckled, her eyes darting around, scanning the crowd. "Let's focus. We need to find out where they're keeping your brother, or at least some clue about the experiments." They navigated through the throng of people, Jack occasionally making a sarcastic remark about the absurdity of some products. His humor kept Elena relaxed, but he could sense her underlying tension. They passed by a booth where attendees were trying to play a game that simulated life as an AI. Jack muttered, "No thanks. I'm living the real thing." Eventually, they found themselves in front of a massive display featuring a holographic projection of a serene landscape. The tagline read, "Elysium, where life meets technology." Elena's expression hardened. "That's where I saw my brother last," she said quietly. "He was working on the project. They were doing something dangerous." "Let's see what we can dig up," Jack replied, glancing at the crowd. "We need to blend in." They approached the booth, and Jack put on his best salesman face. "Excuse me. This is amazing. Can you tell me more about how it works?" he asked one of the overly enthusiastic representatives. "Oh, absolutely." The rep's eyes lit up, thrilled to share the company's latest innovation. Elysium Dynamics is revolutionizing how we interact with technology. Our mind uploading process is a way to escape the limitations of the human body. Jack interjected, his tone light but probing. "Sounds like something from a bad sci-fi movie." The rep frowned, clearly unappreciative of Jack's sense of humor. "No, it's very real. People are already signing up for the program. Immortality is just around the corner." "Yeah, but what's the catch?" Jack pressed, leaning in slightly. The rep hesitated, clearly caught off guard. "Well, there are some initial tests." Jack's heart raced. "Tests? What kind of tests?" Before the rep could respond, Elena nudged Jack, her eyes wide with urgency. "Look over there," she whispered, gesturing toward a side entrance where a small group of people in lab coats were gathered, deep in conversation. Jack's instincts kicked in. "Let's check it out." They discreetly moved toward the entrance, using the crowd as cover. As they approached, Jack could hear snippets of conversation. "Too many subjects are going missing," one scientist said, looking worried. "If we don't do something soon, they won't be coming back," another replied, shaking his head. "The board won't care until it's too late." Jack exchanged a glance with Elena. This was it, the heart of the operation. They slipped behind a curtain, the voices muffled but the gravity of the situation weighing heavily on them. Suddenly, a security guard stepped into view, scanning the area. "Hey, what are you two doing back here?" he barked, eyes narrowing. Jack's mind raced. We were just, checking on the samples." He gestured wildly, trying to buy time. "You know, quality control." The guard frowned but seemed momentarily confused. "You're not authorized to be here. You need to leave." Elena stepped forward, putting on her best innocent face. "Oh, come on. We just want to know more about how this technology can help people. We're really interested." She flashed a disarming smile. The guard hesitated, his brow furrowing. Jack's heart raced. He wasn't sure how long they could keep this up before they were thrown out, or worse, arrested. "Listen, if you're that interested, you should check out the main presentation," the guard said finally, waving them off. "But I'll be watching you." "Great idea. Thanks," Jack said, trying to sound genuinely appreciative. He tugged at Elena, and they slipped away, the tension finally easing once they were out of sight. "What now?" Elena asked, glancing around nervously. "Now we gather intel and find your brother," Jack replied, regaining his composure. "I think we need to go deeper, get to the main event." They edged closer to the presentation stage, where a crowd had gathered for a demonstration of the uploading technology. Jack scanned the area, trying to get a read on the audience. Most looked enthralled, but a few wore expressions of skepticism. He sensed an opportunity. "Let's blend in," he said, ushering Elena toward the throng. "Time for some good old-fashioned detective work." As the lights dimmed, a charismatic figure stepped onto the stage, a polished presenter who exuded charm and confidence. "Welcome, everyone, to Elysium Dynamics. Today, we're unveiling a groundbreaking advancement in technology that will change the very essence of life." Jack elbowed Elena, whispering, "He looks like he's about to sell us a timeshare on the moon." Elena stifled a laugh, but her expression quickly turned serious as the presenter continued. "Imagine a world where death is merely a concept, a fleeting memory. Our technology allows you to upload your consciousness, transcending the limitations of your physical form. Who wouldn't want to live forever?" Jack leaned closer to Elena, his voice low. "Sounds like a recipe for disaster. What if something goes wrong during the upload? Or worse, what if they're experimenting on people without their consent?" Elena replied, her eyes scanning the crowd for familiar faces. As the presentation unfolded, the presenter introduced a series of testimonials from successful subjects, showcasing holographic projections of their new digital lives. Jack's skepticism grew as he watched. "I smell a rat, and it's wearing a designer suit." The crowd clapped enthusiastically, but Jack couldn't shake the feeling of dread. He nudged Elena, whispering, "We need to find a way to get backstage. That's where the real answers are." "Right," Elena agreed, her determination renewed. "Let's go." They maneuvered through the crowd, dodging well-dressed attendees and oversized holographic displays. As they approached the backstage area, Jack noticed a door marked "Authorized Personnel Only." He turned to Elena, a plan forming in his mind. "On 3, we make our move," he whispered. 1, 2, before he could say 3, the door swung open, and a technician stepped out. Jack and Elena exchanged a quick glance and followed the technician inside. Just as the door closed behind them, inside, they found themselves in a narrow hallway lined with glass walls, revealing what looked like labs filled with blinking machines and sleeping figures. The atmosphere was sterile, almost haunting. "This is it," Elena breathed, her voice barely a whisper. "This is where they keep them." As they crept through the lab, Jack's heart raced. He spotted a terminal with a screen displaying information about the subjects. "Let's see if we can find your brother," he said, moving toward the console. Elena joined him, her fingers flying over the keyboard as she accessed the database. Come on, come on." Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the facility, red lights flashing ominously. Jack felt a rush of adrenaline. "We've overstayed our welcome. We need to move, now." Elena's face paled. "I almost found him. Just give me another minute, no time." Jack urged, grabbing her arm. "We need to get out of here." They sprinted through the lab, the sound of footsteps pounding behind them as security personnel converged on their location. Jack ducked into a side room, pulling Elena in just as 2 guards rushed past. "What do we do?" she asked, her voice strained. Jack scanned the room, spotting an open window leading to an external fire escape. "We climb," he decided, moving toward it. Together, they scrambled up the fire escape, the alarm still blaring in the background. Jack felt the rush of adrenaline as they climbed, the cold night air hitting their faces. When they finally reached the roof, they paused to catch their breath. "Now what?" Elena panted, her eyes wide. "Now we regroup and figure out our next move," Jack said, glancing over the edge. "But first, we need to find a way down without getting caught." As they surveyed the sprawling city below, Jack felt a surge of determination. We'll figure this out. We just need to stay one step ahead of them. I hope your plan involves more than just running, Elena replied, a hint of laughter in her voice despite the situation. Jack grinned. Oh, absolutely. I've got a master plan involving a lot of luck and maybe a dash of charm. With the city stretched out beneath them, they made their way across the rooftop, sticking to the shadows. The night felt alive with possibilities, and for the first time in a long while, Jack felt invigorated by the challenge ahead. As they jumped from rooftop to rooftop, dodging security and navigating the chaotic streets below, Jack couldn't help but crack jokes to keep the mood light. If we survive this, we should start a travel blog. How to escape Night City in style. Elena laughed, the tension easing just a bit. Only if you promise to document all the embarrassing moments. Deal. Jack said, his heart racing not just from the thrill of the chase but from the connection growing between them. But let's focus on not getting caught first. Eventually, they found a narrow alleyway that led to a back street. They slipped into the shadows, ducking behind a dumpster as a patrol car zipped by, lights flashing. That was too close, Elena whispered, her breath hitching slightly. Just another day in paradise, Jack replied, a grin plastered on his face. But we need to regroup and come up with a plan. Let's head back to my place. It's not fancy, but it's safer than here. Once they reached Jack's office, they collapsed onto the worn-out couch, breathing heavily. Okay, what's the next step? Elena asked, her expression serious once more. Jack leaned forward, running a hand through his hair. We need to get evidence of what Elysium is doing, something we can take to the authorities or even the media. If we can expose them, we can rescue your brother. Right, Elena said, nodding. But how do we get into their system? They'll be on high alert after tonight. Jack thought for a moment, then a mischievous smile crept across his face. I have an idea, but it's a little crazy. Crazy is good. I'm in. Jack explained his plan, detailing how they could create a diversion at the convention center tomorrow night, drawing security away while they slipped into the building to access the servers. I can cause a ruckus with the drone, he said, while you sneak in and get what we need. You're good with computers. If anyone can hack their system, it's you. Elena's eyes lit up with determination. Let's do it. The next day, they prepped for the big event. Jack's nerves buzzed with anticipation as they made their way back to the convention center, the neon lights casting long shadows in the late afternoon sun. Ready? Elena asked, her face a mixture of excitement and anxiety. Born ready, Jack echoed her earlier words, feeling the adrenaline surge again. They entered the convention hall, now bustling with excitement for the evening's keynote address. Jack spotted the same booth, now more crowded than before, while he and Elena crept around the edges of the crowd, positioning themselves near the main stage. As the keynote speaker took the stage, Jack activated his drone, sending it into the air with a simple command. It buzzed around, capturing the attention of onlookers while Jack kept his eyes trained on the entrance to the secure areas. Now, he murmured, nodding to Elena. She moved stealthily toward the restricted area, her heart racing. Jack watched nervously as the drone's antics drew more and more attention. Just as he had hoped, security began to move toward the source of the commotion. Elena slipped through the door, her heart pounding in her chest. She found herself in a long hallway lined with sleek glass offices and blinking servers. Taking a deep breath, she made her way to a terminal at the far end, fingers flying over the keyboard as she accessed the system. Meanwhile, Jack kept the drone dancing in the air, faking a technical malfunction that kept security busy. He could hear the distant shouts as guards tried to corral the wayward device. Come on, he muttered under his breath, hoping Elena was making progress. Back in the server room, Elena felt the rush of adrenaline as she scanned the data. Her heart sank when she spotted a file labeled Project Elysium, Subject Information. She clicked on it, her breath hitching. "Jack," she whispered urgently into her comms. "I think I found it." "Hold on," Jack replied, his voice strained. "I'm trying to keep a swarm of angry bees off my back." Elena could hear the commotion through the comms and felt a thrill of panic. "You need to distract them a little longer." "I'm almost in. Just a few more seconds, then I'm coming in hot," Jack promised, pulling out a few of his tricks. He sent the drone spiraling around, pretending it was going to crash into one of the displays, creating chaos that drew even more attention from security. "Got it," Elena exclaimed as the screen flickered to life, revealing a list of names and files, including one for her brother. "I see him. He's been moved to a secure facility." "Great. Let's get out of here before they notice," Jack urged. Just then, the door swung open, and two security guards stormed in, eyes narrowing as they spotted Elena. "Hey! What are you doing here?" Elena's heart dropped. "Jack!" she yelled, panic surging through her. "I'm on it," Jack shouted, charging in. He hurled the drone at the guards, who instinctively ducked. "Go, go, go!" Elena bolted for the exit as Jack created a path, his quick thinking allowing them to slip past the guards. They raced down the hall, adrenaline pumping through their veins as they dodged security measures and narrow corners. Once outside, they ran to the nearest alleyway, hearts pounding as they leaned against the cool brick wall, trying to catch their breath. "What now?" Elena asked, her eyes wide with urgency. "We need to get this information to someone who can help," Jack said, glancing around for any potential threats. "But first, we need to lay low for a while." Elena nodded, her mind racing. "We can't let them know we're onto them. They'll move your brother again." Jack took a deep breath, pulling out the files they had copied onto a portable drive. "We need to find a safe place to plan our next move. And we'll need allies, someone who can expose Elysium's practices." They made their way through the labyrinth of Night City, finally settling in a small diner known for its anonymity and greasy fries. As they sat in a booth, Jack pulled out the drive, his fingers trembling slightly. "Okay, this is it. We need to find someone we can trust," he said, scanning the menu but barely registering the options. "I know a journalist," Elena said, her voice steadying. "She's been looking into Elysium for months. If anyone can blow this wide open, it's her." "Then let's contact her," Jack replied, determination igniting in his chest. Elena pulled out her phone, fingers flying over the screen as she sent a message. "I hope she's available." As they waited, Jack couldn't shake the feeling of impending danger. He glanced out the window, the flickering neon lights casting ominous shadows across the diner's interior. Finally, Elena's phone buzzed. "She can meet us at the old warehouse by the docks in an hour." "Perfect," Jack said, his mind already calculating the risks. "Let's finish up and get moving." They polished off their meals, each bite fueling their resolve. As they left the diner, Jack felt the weight of the world on his shoulders, but he also felt something else, a sense of purpose. The warehouse loomed in the distance, a relic of a bygone era now overshadowed by the modern skyline. Jack and Elena approached cautiously, scanning the area for any signs of trouble. "She should be waiting for us inside," Elena said, her voice barely above a whisper. Jack pushed the door open, revealing the dimly lit interior. They stepped inside, the sound of their footsteps echoing against the concrete walls. In the far corner, a figure stood waiting, Maya, a tenacious journalist known for her fearless reporting. Jack. Elena. Maya greeted them, her expression shifting from surprise to concern. You two look like you've seen a ghost. What happened? We found out what Elysium is doing, Jack said, urgency lacing his tone as he handed her the drive. They're experimenting on people, and they've taken Elena's brother. Maya's eyes widened as she scanned the contents. This is huge. You realize what you have here? We need to get this information out before they realize we're onto them, Elena added, her voice firm. They can't silence us if we act fast. Maya nodded, her resolve hardening. I'll get this to my editor right away. But we need to be careful. Elysium has eyes everywhere. As they discussed their next steps, Jack couldn't shake the feeling of impending danger. He knew that Elysium would be searching for them. We need to lay low until the story breaks, he warned. They'll be coming for us. Agreed, Maya said, glancing toward the door. Let's get you two somewhere safe. Just then, the sound of footsteps echoed from outside. Jack's heart raced. We need to move. They quickly slipped out of the warehouse, ducking into the shadows as a patrol car rolled by, its lights sweeping the area. Jack led them through a series of alleyways, every instinct on high alert. Once they were far enough away, Jack turned to Maya. Thank you for helping us. We'll be in touch. Maya nodded, her expression fierce. Stay safe. I'll make sure this gets out. As they parted ways, Jack and Elena found themselves back in the streets of Night City, their hearts pounding with adrenaline. What now? Elena asked, glancing around. We lay low for a while and wait for the news to break, Jack said, trying to catch his breath. Then we'll figure out our next move. Over the next few days, they stayed hidden, relying on Jack's contacts for information while watching the news for any developments. Each evening, they huddled together, poring over the files they'd obtained, looking for any additional leads. Finally, late one night, Jack's phone buzzed. It was a news alert, Elysium Dynamics under investigation following whistleblower claims. Jack felt a surge of hope. It's happening. Maya got the story out. Elena smiled, her eyes shining with determination. Now we need to act fast. They'll be on high alert, and if they suspect we're involved, they'll come for us, Jack finished, his mind racing. But we can't let them intimidate us. We have to find your brother before it's too late. They decided to return to the convention center, where they believed Elysium was still hiding crucial information. We need a solid plan, Elena said, pacing the small space of Jack's office. Right. If we can get into their database again, we can find out where they're holding him, Jack replied, running a hand through his hair. But we need to distract security first. The next evening, they slipped back into the convention, this time more prepared. Armed with a mix of courage and desperation, they blended into the crowd, Jack's drone tucked away for the grand distraction. Once again, they waited for the right moment. As the lights dimmed for another product presentation, Jack activated the drone, sending it whirling into the air, drawing gasps and cheers from the crowd. This is it, Elena murmured, her heart racing. Let's go. They dashed toward the secure area, slipping through the same door as before, hearts pounding. Jack led the way, determined to find the information they needed. Just a little further, he whispered, adrenaline fueling their urgency. Elena hurried to the terminal, fingers flying over the keyboard as Jack kept watch, listening for any signs of approaching security. "Come on, come on," Elena urged, her eyes flicking back to Jack. "Just a few more seconds," Jack assured her, the tension in the air thickening. Finally, the screen flashed with information. "Got it," Elena exclaimed, scanning the names and files. They moved him to an underground facility. "Where?" Jack asked, urgency lacing his voice. "Near the docks," she replied, a mix of excitement and fear in her tone. "We need to go, now." But just as they were about to make their escape, the alarms blared once more, lights flashing ominously. "Jack!" Elena shouted, panic rising in her voice. "Run!" Jack yelled, grabbing her hand as they bolted from the room, sprinting down the hallway as security flooded in behind them. They raced through the building, their hearts pounding in unison as they dashed for the exit. Jack could hear the guards shouting, their footsteps pounding against the floor as they pursued. "Almost there," he shouted, adrenaline surging through him. As they burst through the exit, Jack spotted an old maintenance door and yanked it open, pushing Elena through just as they heard the shouts behind them. They stumbled into the alley, quickly ducking behind a dumpster to catch their breath, their hearts racing. "Did we lose them?" Elena gasped, her eyes wide. "For now," Jack said, his voice steadying. "But we need to move fast. We can't let them catch us." They navigated the dimly lit streets, finally arriving at the docks, a place where the shadows seemed to come alive. Jack felt a sense of foreboding as they approached the underground facility, the air thick with tension. "Stay close," he whispered, his instincts kicking in as they made their way inside. The facility was a maze of concrete and metal, dimly lit and echoing with distant sounds. Jack's heart raced as they crept through the corridors, the adrenaline coursing through his veins. "Where do we start?" Elena asked, her eyes scanning the area. "We need to find the control room," Jack replied, determined to uncover the truth. "That's where they'll have everything documented." As they made their way deeper into the facility, they encountered a series of locked doors, their hearts pounding with every step. "There has to be a way in," Elena murmured, studying the security panel beside the door. Jack took a breath, adrenaline spiking. "Let me try something." He pulled out his drone, quickly programming it to distract the cameras while he and Elena worked on the lock. As the drone zipped away, they heard the faint whir of the mechanism. "Almost there," Jack urged, his fingers deftly navigating the panel. Finally, with a click, the door swung open, revealing a room filled with monitors and equipment. "This is it," Elena exclaimed, her eyes wide as she stepped inside. "We can find out where they're holding him." Jack rushed to the nearest terminal, quickly scanning the screens for any signs of her brother. As he worked, he couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, his instinct screaming at him, "Jack, over here." Elena called, her voice breaking through his thoughts. He turned to see her pointing at a monitor displaying a live feed of a holding area. "That's him," she shouted, her heart racing as she recognized her brother. "Let's get him out," Jack said, determination flooding his veins. But before they could make their next move, the sound of footsteps echoed through the hallway. Jack felt a surge of panic. "We need to hurry." Elena nodded, her fingers flying over the keyboard as she accessed the security systems. "I can unlock the doors from here. Just keep an eye out." Jack positioned himself near the entrance, listening intently as the footsteps grew closer. "Hurry," he urged. Finally, the door clicked open, revealing a series of dimly lit holding cells. "There," Elena pointed. "That's where they're keeping him." They rushed down the corridor, heartbeats pounding in their ears. Jack felt a surge of hope as they approached the cell, but just as he reached for the door, it swung open, revealing a security guard with a gun drawn. "Stop right there," the guard shouted. Jack barely had time to react. "Run," he yelled, pushing Elena away from the guard's aim. They dashed down the corridor as the guard shouted for backup, the sounds of footsteps echoing behind them. Jack's heart raced as he led Elena through the winding halls, desperation driving them forward. "Where do we go?" she gasped, her breath coming in quick bursts. "Anywhere but here," Jack replied, scanning their surroundings for an exit. They stumbled into a large room filled with machinery, the dim lights flickering overhead. Jack could hear the guards closing in, their shouts echoing through the hallways. "Over there." Elena pointed to a side door, and they bolted for it, slipping inside just as the guards rounded the corner. Breathless, they found themselves in a storage area filled with crates and equipment. "What now?" Elena asked, her voice trembling with urgency. Jack glanced around, his mind racing. "We can hide here for a moment and plan our next move." They crouched behind a crate, hearts pounding as the sounds of footsteps echoed closer. "Where did they go?" a guard shouted. "They can't have gotten far." "Keep looking," another replied, their voices fading as they moved down the corridor. Jack took a deep breath, glancing at Elena. "We need to make a move soon. We can't stay here forever." She nodded, determination shining in her eyes. "Let's find a way out of here." They crept through the storage area, carefully avoiding detection as they navigated through the crates. Finally, they spotted a door leading outside. "Let's go," Jack whispered, pushing the door open just enough for them to slip through. They stepped outside, the night air hitting their faces as they found themselves at the edge of the facility. "Which way?" Elena asked, looking around nervously. "Toward the water," Jack replied, pointing toward the docks. "We'll find a boat or something to get us out of here." As they sprinted toward the water, Jack felt a surge of hope mingled with fear. They were so close to freedom, yet the threat loomed large behind them. Just as they reached the docks, they heard the unmistakable sound of sirens in the distance. "We need to hurry," Jack urged, glancing back. They raced toward a row of boats, frantically searching for one that was accessible. Jack spotted an old fishing boat, its engine still intact. "This one," he shouted, sprinting toward it. Elena followed, her heart pounding. "Can you drive it?" "Only one way to find out," Jack replied, quickly climbing aboard. He fumbled with the controls, adrenaline coursing through his veins as he tried to remember everything he'd seen in movies. Come on," Elena urged, her eyes scanning the docks for any sign of pursuing guards. With a sputter, the engine roared to life, and Jack grinned. "We're in business." They took off, the boat cutting through the water as they left the docks behind. But just as they began to breathe a sigh of relief, Jack spotted lights flashing behind them. "Jack!" Elena exclaimed, her voice filled with panic. "They're coming after us." "Hold on," Jack yelled, gripping the steering wheel as he tried to outmaneuver the approaching patrol boats. With the wind whipping through their hair, they zigzagged through the water, Jack's heart racing as he navigated the boat. He could see the guards closing in, their shouts echoing across the waves. "Faster!" Elena shouted, her fear palpable. "I'm trying," Jack replied, pushing the boat to its limits. They weaved between the larger ships in the harbor, hoping to lose their pursuers in the chaos. Finally, Jack spotted a narrow opening between two larger vessels. "There! We can lose them in the harbor." With determination, he turned the boat sharply, squeezing through the narrow gap as the guards shouted behind them. They emerged into the open water, the night sky stretching above them. Jack could feel the adrenaline coursing through his veins, heart pounding in time with the engine. "Keep going," Elena urged, her eyes wide as they raced away from the chaos. Jack pushed the boat further into the darkness, the lights of the city fading behind them. They finally slowed, the sound of the waves lapping against the hull a welcome relief. "We did it," Elena said, her voice filled with disbelief as they floated in the quiet. "Yeah, but we're not safe yet," Jack reminded her, scanning the horizon. "We need to find a place to lay low until we can regroup." They steered the boat toward a nearby island, hoping to find shelter for the night. As they docked, Jack felt a surge of hope. They had escaped for now, but the battle was far from over. As they stepped onto the shore, Jack turned to Elena. "We're going to get your brother back. I promise." Elena nodded, determination shining in her eyes. "We're in this together." With the stars shining above them, they set off into the unknown, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead.